Z Pixel. Today, I'd like to offer you some practical advice on how to best use advice. How meta is that? What do I mean by that? Well, I'm somebody who's always been into improving his art career and improving my life, my health, being fit, eating well, lifestyle, home decor, cooking, whatever the case might be. I'm always somebody who is striving to be the best version of myself, which I feel is, if done in a balanced way, can be a very healthy way to live and a very positive way to live. As such, I'm somebody who consumes a lot of content online on fitness and diet and medicine and fitness and all that kind of stuff. And of course, being an art channel, a lot of art content from all of the amazing content creators out there. However, I've noticed, especially in the last 3 to 5 years or so, that the landscape of social media for content creators like myself on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever, has gotten very uncertain for creators. As such, I have slowly but surely started to notice a lot of that content get, or at least go down a rabbit hole that I don't necessarily think is healthy in every case. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's very, very helpful. But what I want to help arm you with today is a way to be able to filter that through your own common sense and decide for yourself if you feel that's the advice that's best for you. And I think I'm very well positioned in my life to be a living example of the first major point I want to make. Just because I'm old and I speak with an authoritative tone does not make me right. It doesn't make me right. Just because I'm old doesn't mean I know better than everybody else. There are certain things I've absolutely lived through, and I have had the opportunity to be able to learn through time, not just lessons, but be able to live through a lot of things that perhaps somebody who's a bit younger hasn't. But I'm one person from one demographic with one lifestyle, living in one type of country, who's faced his type of obstacles in his own career that might not be relevant at all in yours. Furthermore, my brain works a certain way. My body works a certain way. So for me, the type of things that I feel confident with, the things where I feel I can offer the most value, the areas where I feel I learn the best, and conflicts that I feel I manage the best, are ones that I manage in a way that synergizes well with me. So for me, as a YouTuber, one of the things that I've been extremely sensitive to growing up, a lot to do with my own personal background, but also the kind of stuff that I see online, is I am very, very sensitive to gurus. People who are know-it-alls, people who live on the fringes, who know those things you do not know. And those are the ones that I tend to have a big red flag up for. This is why I've always been a very anti-cult advocate, because I don't have any patience for them whatsoever. And I'm very sensitive when things start to cross that line into the overly parasocial relationship, like people like Mel Robbins or whatever. Like, eesh, she kind of creeps me out, to be completely honest with you. Just because somebody speaks with authority and confidence does not automatically make them right. And remember that their opinion is only one. So what I recommend you do is, if there's something that you're very interested in, something you're very passionate about, and you're learning from somebody and you really like a person's advice, I recommend that you deliberately, including with the video that I'm sharing with you right now, that you deliberately go out of your way to explore opposing theories, opposing pieces of information, for the sake of being able to find that balance between the two and ultimately be able to gauge where you feel you fit best between the two. And you have my word, 100% of the time, you're never going to completely share one person's opinion or another. You're going to find a nuanced opinion that sits where in the middle. The second thing that I would add to that is beware of people who have a piece of advice that contradicts the norm. It's very tempting to listen to somebody who has that secret recipe that nobody else knows about, that secret food that will cure this disease, or this secret habit that will cure this neurological disorder or this secret technique that will get you the job that nobody else has. You have my word. I'm willing to bet my left testicle on the fact that nobody, myself included, has the secret recipe. A recipe that works is one that has been tried and tested, that has been peer-reviewed, and that many, many people repeat throughout the industry. Every now and then, there's a seasoned professional with a lot of experience who says, hey, this has been the norm so far, but what if we add this ingredient to it? Look at how this enhances the entire experience. They might have a piece of advice that they deliver in a way that makes it click for a lot of people that didn't before. They have a way of delivering that information in a way that makes the lesson a lot more understandable and digestible. That's perfectly fine. But if it's somebody who says, nobody else knows what they're doing, I do, that's clickbait, and it's a trap. And I would say that's a very big red flag to look out for. Here's a good example. In my videos, one of the things you're going to hear me say a lot, you're going to hear me say this more than the opposite. And that is, follow and do the things that you love. Follow your passions. And I remember whenever I would say something like that in one of my videos, I would get an email or a message from somebody who would say, hey, I know you're somebody who's a big advocate for following your passions, but this older artist over here had a video where he contradicted that entirely. And he said, you shouldn't follow your passions. That's a bottomless pit of idealism that's never going to get you anywhere. And I know so many artists who've destroyed their careers that they never wanted to do any hard work because they just wanted to do what felt right. Although there is truth in that. If you don't do the hard work, if you just want to do what feels good all the time and you just want to sit in your basement and not really grow or learn, you just want life to be handed to you on a silver platter without being aware of what the technical demands of the industry is, yeah, you're not going to find a lot of success. However, if you look at the other side of that coin, if all you do is do what other people want, do what other people demand, and with these ever-shifting demands of the industry, you keep getting pulled further and further away from your true self, something that I fell victim to, you might very well, as I did, find yourself not getting calls, having no idea who you are, never really growing fast enough because you're constantly hitting a reset button because different industries and different studios are looking for different things. And you go through this absolute identity crisis where you don't know where the hell you belong artistically. And sure as shit, even though you're not following what you love, you burn yourself out trying to follow what everybody else loves. So you can see that purely following your passion and completely abandoning your passion, either one of these extremes very seldom work. You need a nice combination of both. And what combination of those two is something that I talk about with my students all the time when I'm doing consultations. We literally visualize these different industries, what this looks like, what this looks like, and think of that as a weight going back and forth psychologically between these two different personality types. And I ask them in the end, where do you fit in there? What feels right to you? What parts of this do you like? What parts of that do you like? Where do you find yourself? Do you sway heavily to the right, to the left, somewhere in the middle? What is it? And that's where the artist starts to be able to really see and feel where they uniquely exist professionally and where to invest their energy. But if you follow the advice to screw your passion and just do what the industry is looking for, I pretty much guarantee you are going to burn out after 5 years of that because that's not sustainable. Furthermore, if all you want to be is idealistic and live the romantic hippie life, you're going to be broke and miserable as well. While we're on the topic of finding direction and the effort that you put towards that direction, one of the things that really threw me off at a certain point, once I started to get better at my art career, was with effort comes success. With effort comes confidence and focus. And I can say with confidence that no matter how good I got, it never solved confidence and it never solved focus. That effort for the sake of effort, without aim as a part of that equation, without a focused direction as a part of that equation, can lead a person down years or even decades of effort that leads absolutely nowhere. And I'm a living testament to this. I started off my career having a false sense of security because I'm an artist who got gobbled up into the gaming industry and they needed artists. Fast forward 10 years later, I know I've told this story before. Fast forward 10 years later, I'm now an artist with 10 years of experience. I'm now starting to move into that senior range, yet the number of calls I was getting and the amount of positive feedback I was getting on my work, furthermore, my sense of direction in my career was completely upside down. And it wasn't until I had an opportunity where I spoke to a friend of mine who's a director, who's the head of HR at Ubisoft, I applied to a job there, that he gave me a piece of information that completely flipped my understanding of my artistic pursuits upside down. I had been trying to solve my art career and trying to find a sense of direction purely through effort, purely through just sacrifice. And I was exhausted and I was burned out. And it wasn't until I got that piece, and something that was relevant to me, it might not be relevant to you, but I got that piece of advice that said, this is what we're looking for. You're very good, but that's what we're looking for. And this is why you're not getting hired. And when I got an actual chance to see the person who had gotten hired, I went, holy shit, yeah. I've been basically, my career has been a spray and pray for the last 6 years. Spray and pray means just kind of like throwing out CVs and portfolios all over the place and hoping that somebody's going to catch. I've been spraying and praying for so many years that I was getting absolutely no traction from that. As soon as I realized what I was doing wrong, my effort to get a job was reduced by around 2/3, but the success that I found from every effort that I made increased 5-fold. All of a sudden, people were discovering me, people were hiring me, people were interested in me because I knew who I was and they recognized that. So when I applied to the right place, I was applying to the right places and I was getting the right kind of response rather than just trying to say, hey, I'm a really hardworking artist who's got experience, please hire me. That's not going to get you the job. So do not mistake skill and effort and experience as direction. You're going to hit a roadblock at a certain point in your career. And I'm sure a lot of you artists out there, especially you artists who have professional experience, you're really going to relate to this because you're going to be like, hell yeah, I've been doing this for years. I've got a very solid portfolio. I've attended all of these different art schools. I've got great technical skill. I've got this very impressive CV, yet nobody's returning my phone call. And that's when I recommend, especially to you professionals out there, if you're a professional, it's time for you to talk to somebody and say, this is my skill. Why am I not getting calls? And have somebody objectively look at your work and say, it's great, but nobody's going to hire you for that. You're applying to the wrong places because this and that. If you're somebody who's newer in their journey, you're just at the very beginning, you're starting to get those fundamentals, you're starting to become more of a professional with your technical skills, I would recommend you talk to somebody so that you don't waste 10 years going down that rabbit hole. There's no reason, you're under no obligation to get lost into the fray, into the jungle of possibilities if you don't need to. The only people who I would not recommend consult with a professional for career direction yet would be people at the very, very early phase of their career. Because I recommend you experiment more. That's what I would call your experimental phases. You've been drawing your whole life, you started school, you're getting to meet a lot of other great artists, you're getting to get a better sense of what's professional art. Experiment more. Test the waters, jump into different pools and see what works best for you. Once you start to get a little bit of that professional momentum, however, you start to get a sense of your style and your niche, that's when I would say, take a moment, consult with somebody, speak to a professional, reach out to somebody so that the efforts that you make are focused and they'll get you where you want to get as quickly as possible without wasting years just kind of being in experimental mode. While we're on the topic of effort, there's a trap that a lot of gifted and skilled and professional artists can fall into, and that's the endless improvement trap. There's a certain point in your artistic career where you just got to get off your ass and go. And what a lot of artists do very often, and I've seen this in some of the best artists, some of the most celebrated artists today. I've worked with artists who I would ask the question, why aren't you working professionally yet? You're one of the best artists I've seen. You're so good, I should be taking your art course, not the other way around. To which they would say, I just need to improve a little bit more. I just need to fix this before I'm ready to move forward. And that, to me, comes across as being a delaying tactic. I remember working with one artist who's today probably one of the most celebrated artists, fantasy illustrators out there. And she had signed up for my course years ago. And right as soon as she'd signed up, I thought, I don't know why you're taking my course. I should be taking courses with you. You're incredible. Although I did help her technically with her art to a certain degree, I think the biggest contribution I made to her career is I just gave her a kick in the ass and said, get out there and apply. Yeah, you're overqualified, go. I don't know what the hell you're waiting for. And she said, are you sure? And I said, yes. Yes, you are. Fast forward like 1 year after that conversation we had, and she was one of the top artists out there. And I wasn't surprised. I knew she was great, but it was remarkable how even an artist of her quality, even an artist with her incredible skill, commendable skill, world's class stuff, needed to hear it from me. She was such a perfectionist. She was so hardworking. She set such an impossible bar for herself. But perhaps, maybe working as a professional was a little bit of a scary step to take. That she kept trying to hide behind the one more thing mindset. And I didn't let her get away with that. I said, no, you're going to get out there and you're going to do it. That was my biggest contribution. And that's all she needed. And once she did, she was good to go. Now, despite her expertise, she didn't know if she was good enough. She just kept improving endlessly. In her particular case, she was very overqualified. But for other artists, sometimes you just need to know, is my portfolio ready? Is my artwork ready? Speak to a professional. Reach out to one of these schools online and ask them for some objective professional feedback, depending on the type of art career that you're trying to get into, the type of art that you're trying to do. Get those professionals who know what it takes to get hired to give you that green light if you need it. Now, there's another potential danger from waiting too long. And that is, the longer you wait, the more you wait to be good enough without getting anywhere substantial with it professionally, your momentum slowly starts to slow down. And the more you slow down, the less traction your career gets, the more you start to not trust your own judgment. And it's at times like that, that's a very dangerous tipping point in a person's mindset. When you stop trusting your own judgment, that you start looking outside of yourself to find the solution. This is more often than not when artists start to become overly influenced by other artists that are really, really good. They start to get seduced by the artwork and the careers of other people. And they juxtapose that against their own stuff because it's taken them so long to get any kind of traction professionally that they feel they don't have what it takes when they might very well already have what it takes. In fact, more often than not, they do. That they go outside of themselves. They start to try to learn a new type of art. They start to over focus on other people's art styles and start to alter what they're doing too much. And that's very dangerous for an artist, especially professional, because what that's effectively doing is hitting the big red reset button on your progress. You doubted yourself. So you said, okay, I'm going to get off this path and try something else. And you do. And what you didn't realize is if you just went that little bit further, if you were just a little bit more patient, you would have succeeded. But now you've delayed yourself by taking this unnecessary detour that's 10 times as long. And I'm guilty of doing this, and many artists I know have been guilty of doing this as well. I recommend, if you're somebody who's already gained some kind of professional momentum and that you have a style and you're gaining recognition for what it is that you do, that stay on that path. There are times in your life where, sometimes the industry's a little dry. Sometimes you're not getting as much attention as you might. But when you derail yourself, you are doing nothing but wasting time. Stay on that path, get better at what you're doing, become a better version of that, maybe add a skill to your existing skill set to enhance yourself and grow. But do not derail yourself because that's just going to cost you time. So where does growth come from? It doesn't come from effort alone. It comes from having a solid sense of direction and then making efforts to achieve that. Knowing where you're going and focusing your energies in that direction. If I wanted to become a plumber, there's no benefit to me to learn how to pave my driveway, even though they're technically handy person jobs. No, if I want to be a plumber, I need to have plumber's tools and practice those until I get masterful at that. But I need to know what artistic career I'm pursuing first. I can tell you from personal experience, not knowing that can cost you decades of your life. You don't want to go down that path. Once you have that sense of direction and that somebody, when needed, is guiding you towards that direction, this is when you're going to start to know, not hope, but know that you're doing the right thing. You're going to gain more confidence. Your artwork is going to improve very quickly. But most importantly, you're going to become recognized. You're going to become discoverable. When you have a strong sense of self, when you know who you are, you know what your artistic identity is, people will discover that and hire you for that. Furthermore, who you apply to will be specific. You're not going to be spraying and praying like I did in my career longer than I'd like to admit. You're going to function, you're going to think more like a sniper who knows exactly what your target is, and you're going to hit it in as few shots as possible. I'm going to close with this, and that is to say, most of the artists that I work with that I've seen have gotten very stuck in their career have not gotten stuck because they lacked discipline or effort. It's because somewhere down the line, at any phase of their career, they listened to a piece of advice that sent them down the wrong path. That either they listened to this guru or that guru. They listened to this extreme piece of information or that piece of information, and they thought they had to choose a path that somebody else had paved for them. If that's the situation you find yourself in right now, what I highly recommend you do is reach out to a professional that doesn't tell you what to do, but offers you a very balanced and nuanced set of possibilities that you can clearly find yourself in, where you can say, not 100% of that, maybe 30% of this and 20% of that and 40% of that. There you go. And then that professional will present to you the art career that best utilizes that artistic personality that you have. And you have my word. I've worked with thousands of artists, and I've never met two artists that were exactly the same. Every artist is on their own unique spot in that spectrum. Sound good? With that said, since you stuck it out to the very end, I'm going to teach you the Polish phrase of the day, because I'm learning Polish as a total beginner, and we might as well be on this journey together. And this week's phrase is pracuj mądrze, nie ciężko. Pracuj mądrze, nie ciężko. That means work smart, not hard. Cool? So write that down in the comments below. Pracuj mądrze, nie ciężko. And of course, I love you all with all my heart, and happy painting. Take care.